I'd like to call the May 2nd, 2017 meeting of the County Commissioners to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. We'll begin our meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Earlier this week, former County Commissioner Doris Gietzentanner passed away. Commissioner Gietzentanner accomplished much during her years of public service. She helped organize the incorporation of the town of Woodfin and then was elected to serve on the Woodfin Board of Aldermen. In 1976, she ran for county commissioner. She spent $47 of her own money in that campaign for cards to hand out and to pay the filing fee. She was the highest vote getter of all the candidates. She would go on to serve on the county commission for 16 years. During her time on the county commission, she became known for her effective leadership on many issues, including support for public schools and increasing teacher pay. She was known for her accessibility and always returning any contacts from her constituents. She served on the State County Commission Board for 7 years, driving to Raleigh for that board once every month. And she spearheaded changing the county's motto from men to match our mountains to a people to match our mountains. Doris's daughter, Debbie, continues to serve on the Woodfin Board of Aldermen. Let us hold a moment of silence to remember the life and service of County Commissioner Doris Gietzentanner. Thank you. And thank you all for being with us this evening.
Chairman, before you get started, just a point of personal privilege, I'd like to mention about the National Day of Prayer. Thursday, let me turn this on to make sure that everybody knows it. At City County Plaza on Thursday from 12 to 2. It's a National Day of Prayer, and there will be representatives from the county and the city and various faith organizations, so we'd encourage you to let your friends and family know, and if you're available, to come out. If not, we'd encourage you to pray for our country and county and all the work that's being done. The need is great, and we'd encourage you to do that on the 4th. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to read the ethics reminder for the board, and then we'll have public comment. For the proclamations, I'd like to suggest we move the Foster Family Appreciation recognition up to first on the proclamations. We have a lot of folks who are eager to hear it.
Babies.
All right. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Also, does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? Seeing none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters that are voted on at the County Commission meeting this evening. Moving on to public comment, the time for individual comment to the board is 3 minutes. If your time expires, you may leave any question along with your name, address, and phone number with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. This is your time to speak to us. The board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the board during the same meeting. Are there any members of the public who would like to participate in public comment this evening? Yes, we'll start with you, ma'am, in the middle.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to share a comment, a 3-minute comment. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to read because I don't want to miss anything important. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, my name is Allie Climo, and I serve as the coordinator of the Buncombe County Aging Plan. I'm here this evening with Bill O'Connell, a volunteer member of the ACC. Thank you for agreeing to support the Age-Friendly Communities resolution appearing in your consent agenda. I'm proud that Buncombe County has a long track record of going above and beyond to serve its older citizens, both by contributing county dollars to the federal and state aging funds and by approving ambitious and comprehensive aging plans for more than a decade. Your vote tonight is both a promise and a mandate that we work together throughout Buncombe County and over the long haul to become more and more age-friendly. In addition, this resolution proclaims May 2017 Older Americans Month in Buncombe County. In that proclamation, you have called upon all our citizens, from business and faith leaders to philanthropists and educators, to recognize that older adults constitute a valuable human resource and to engage older adults in all aspects of community life.
Thanks. Sort of like the old wrestling matches with tag teams. As Ellie said, I'm Bill O'Connell. I'm also speaking to an issue that's in your consent agenda, the Age Friendly Communities Network. I appreciate that we have that on the agenda tonight. And I also want to say how neat it is to be on the agenda in this position speaking to this at the same time we have so many kids on the other end of the age spectrum. I think it says a lot for our community. So in passing this resolution, though, you really accomplished two things. First is, as we enter Older Americans Month, it's an appropriate recognition, certainly, to give to Buncombe County citizens in terms of the value they contribute to our community. However, the second part of that resolution, as you probably have noticed, is the business end of it. And that's the one in which you essentially task those of us engaged in older adult services planning to up our game. And by that I mean, in directing us to join the network of age-friendly communities, we'll be seeking out guidance from other communities across the country who excel in integrating older adult services into their community. By your direction, we'll be looking for benchmarks, comparative measures with which to be able to come back to you and report how we stack up relative to those communities. And finally, by your direction, we also have portfolio, if you will, to invite other leaders, stakeholders in the community to join with us in that planning. And by that I mean folks from the clinical medical community, the public health community, education, business, housing, and other community services to join us in creating plans for the future. Plans that always in the past have not necessarily cut across the silos of our responsibilities. And our job will be to try to bridge those. So 5 years from now, Buncombe County should be known as more than just a popular place to retire, but also a model for a community on aging in well-being. So I will end there, and thank you again for your help with this, and I appreciate joining in making this happen over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill and Ally, very much. All right, who else?
Second row.
Who else would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is John Maddox, and I live in Weaverville, and I am disabled with hearing and strokes, and I need to stop driving, but we have no public transport outside of Asheville, and we need county and city collaboration now. Public transportation is a civil right, and you know, how would it be to be transported from Weaverville to Asheville in 20 minutes by public transportation? That would be one of my goals, and hopefully it could be one of the city and county goals also. And that's primarily what I have to say.
Great, thank you for being with us. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Roberta Madden. I live in Black Mountain, North Carolina, and I'm here to speak in support of the Equal Rights Amendment. We sent each of you a copy of a resolution that we would like you to consider, if not tonight, perhaps in your next meeting. The Equal Rights Amendment has 24 words, and it's been around for 94 years and still hasn't made it all the way through. So we think now is the time. The 24 words are as follows. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Now, who could disagree with that? Nevada recently ratified the Equal Rights Amendment just last month, and there are other communities and other county commissions throughout North Carolina that have expressed support for this. It is before the legislature. It's Senate Bill 85 and House Bill 102. And the other communities that have expressed support are the City Council of Durham, the Board of Commissioners of Durham County, also the Board of Commissioners of Orange County, the City of Winston-Salem, and several small towns on the East Coast. We believe that our Board of Commissioners is extremely progressive in that you would be in support of this, and we ask that you consider allowing time for a short presentation, perhaps at your next meeting, so that you would express support for this. And we thank you very much for your consideration.
I'm just here to piggyback on what Roberta said. My name's Amanda Krause. I've been working on passing the Equal Rights Amendment for about a year now, starting in Washington, D.C., and doing a march from New York City to Washington, D.C. to raise awareness about this. All of those states have already ratified, though, so we need to really be one of the states to take hold of this. And I think by passing a local Buncombe County resolution, we'll be able to raise awareness about this. If all of you would take the time to watch a film called Equal Means Equal, it will elaborate on all of the reasons why the current laws do not protect women fully against being discriminated against, and it can be found on iTunes and Amazon. It's called Equal Means Equal, and it's directed by Camila Lopez. If you check your email, you'll see I sent you details on all of that information. And I have here 921 signatures on petitions from Buncombe County residents supporting the Equal Rights Amendment resolution here. So we'll continue to gather those signatures until we can hold a beautiful presentation here for you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jerry Rice. And is there anybody else while Jerry's coming up? Anybody else? Tim? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Glad we're getting a good start on the budget message at May 2nd instead of May 31 last year. That's good. Thank you for doing that. First of all, I don't think the TV and the media should be the one announcing all this stuff out before you hear it. We should have had a budget workshop rather than having a budget message first. We don't know what we're doing. We're listening to the county manager. That don't mean she knows everything. Now, number one, individual property owners is the key here. They are the taxpayers that's holding this thing up all the way. Small business, you've heard of SIBO, small business. They are the 1%, okay? 1%, you heard that? The taxpayers individually are the one that is paying the bill. It ain't the small business people. The general fund budget has increased 10% over the last 10 years, 10% a year. We can show you the figures if you want them. Whose budget has increased by that individually or anywhere else, and what has kept up with it? Inflation sure hasn't, or retirement or nothing else. In 2014, $296 million in the budget to be presented on the general fund, or the amended budget. 2015 and 2016, it went to 321. That's a $24 million increase in 2 years, over the 2 years. Now, plus, what are you adding to the revenue neutral this year? Revenue neutral should be at 49.9. I've revised my numbers. I said 50 cents a month ago. It's 49.9 with the new numbers. Debt service, $538 million. We need to have either the county manager or you take the county manager's credit cards and tear them up, $538 million in the hole, okay? So we need to be looking at that. The budget ordinance, the budget message, you need to be going back and look at historical and see just how much this budget has increased over time. Now, it's not time to stand here and debate all this at one time, but if you want to talk individually, I'm happy to talk to you. Figures don't lie, but liars figure, they say. So when we start talking about numbers, don't tell me. We can bring a jack-in-the-box out of the hat anytime, and you can throw my numbers out. But I'll compare your numbers with anything the county manager's got, and let's see who's right. Got that? New tax rate, 49.9. Anybody disagree with that? Hold your hand up. Okay, nobody disagrees. So we're looking for the lower the tax rate here. The people, individual, okay? They're carrying the load, 90-some%. It ain't these big business people dressed up, you know. I'm an individual. You know.
Thanks. All right, Tim, your turn. Come on up.
Good evening, County Commissioners. I'm Timothy Sadler, and as some of you may know, I helped run a nonprofit effort to help veterans, actually homeless veterans here in the community for about 2 years. I did that work, and my contact information still is on some of the resource materials for different groups out there, and I like it that way. I, from time to time, will get a call from someone in need of some support, and I'm always happy to help that individual. Just yesterday, I got a call from a homeless veteran. Her name is Vivian Suber, and Vivian had been referred to Homeward Bound and to the SSF or SSVF program, and she is likely to get support there. Unfortunately, it takes time for that process to be complete. So it typically is 3 to 6 weeks turnaround time. Well, that 3 to 6 weeks puts a veteran out in the street and homeless, and that is exactly the case of Vivian. She was lucky enough to have Alice, who's behind me, help with a one-night hotel room, and of course that's up tonight. We're really blessed here in Asheville to have the support, the resources that we have for veterans. We have one of the best VAs in the country, and we're regarded as having some of the best resources. But that being said, there's still a gap, and it's a small gap that needs to be filled. The VA has a program where they'll assist a veteran in being put up in a hotel if there's a health issue and they're in town for some time. And Alice has actually taken an initiative to speak to the VA about extending that program to help a homeless veteran that is waiting to have their application processed for SSVF. We are here tonight to ask if there's a commissioner that has a relationship with an administrator at the Charles George facility, that we could sit down and have this conversation. If we can figure this out here, we'll be a great example for the rest of the country, because what's going on here is not exclusive to Asheville. I have Alice behind me. She has a little more context to offer to this matter, and thank you for your time.
Good evening, Commissioners. I've been here many times before. I see a whole lot of new faces this time. I've been addressing homeless situation in this county for over 10 years now, and it seems like mostly the women veterans are falling through the cracks. This is not the first case with Vivian Suber. I've had numerous cases. Some of the cases got so distraught with the ineptness, lack of any other word I could say, of the VA and the homeless organizations that are helping veterans, that they even leave the state to find other resources. Women veterans are difficult to draw out because they find resources how to survive. They're couch surfers. And when HUD changed the definition of homelessness and eliminated couch surfers, that took out almost the entire population of women veterans being homeless. So in my efforts, starting Aura Home Women Vets is a nonprofit to help specifically homeless veterans and those who are at risk of homelessness. I'm encountering a lot of difficulty getting the resources to these women to help them. And I appreciate any assistance I can get from the county. And I'll be talking to the city as well. To allocate these resources is difficult for the veterans because of emergency services. It's not there. They go for emergency services, and we'll come back next week. We'll have a decision on what we can do for you. You're homeless. You know, this particular veteran had her home. She just lost resources because she couldn't find employment here in Buncombe County. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Anisha's going to reach out, see if we can help with the emergency.
Okay. Thank you, Mandy.
Yeah, Chairman, I was going to suggest that we make sure we have their information because there's levels above us, you know, that are actively involved in the VA here locally at the Congress level. So we might be able to refer some to get some help too.
Tammy can help tonight around the emergency and then set up that meeting with the VA around the follow-up.
Great. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Are there any other members here who would like to speak during public comment? All right. Seeing none, I'd like to. Okay. Sure. Come on up. Sorry about that.
I'm Charlie Gleisner with Asheville City Schools. I'm sure my boss wonders what I'm doing up here, but many of you may not be aware that Joe Bly passed away this past weekend. Joe was a postmaster in our community. He was an MC for 20 years with one of the festival events. And he came to our public comment for not years, but for decades. We didn't always agree with him, but he was always passionate about the kids and the fate of our kids. So I just wanted to read his name and his memory into the record tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing that. All right. Next on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and follow the remainder of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed. Thank you. All right, moving on to proclamations. We're going to start off with the Foster Family Appreciation Month recognition, and Commissioner Joe Belcher is going to help out with this along with Angie Garner. So if y'all would both please move over to the podium.
Turn those kids loose. Good. So I got a 16-month-old granddaughter, and when I hear that little sweet voice, that's what I hear every time. So I was getting ready to tell you to turn her loose and let her run. So we've had adults do that here, so we'd be okay with the kids doing it. But I have had an opportunity to do this several times. My daughter and my son-in-law had an opportunity to foster, and so I understand the relationship. And my son and his wife also adopted one of my grandchild, and actually they were involved in the birth process and everything. So it's pretty exciting to be able to do this. So it looks like we got 4 families that we're going to recognize, and what I'm going to do is, and it's actually four different awards, so I'm going to read each one of them, and you can come up and we'll present them individually, and then you want to speak at the end, or you want to speak towards each of the awards?
How about towards each of them?
Okay, all right, so we'll go ahead and let me read the first one, and then she'll let us know what the award's all about. But Buncombe County Commissioners recognize and honor Brandy Lamb and Brandy McKenzie. I hope I got that right. On behalf of the citizens. Oh yeah, that's the little ones. On behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board expresses its sincere appreciation by presenting you with the Creating Impact Award. Y'all come on. Come on. For bravely facing... You know a papaw when you see one, don't you? For bravely facing the challenges that impact children and helping them on to success. Your outstanding commitment to children and families makes our community a better place. Thank you for being a true example of our motto, People to Match Our Mountains, and it's signed by all of the commissioners.
Thank you so much. So I just want to say a few words. Thank you. The Brandies, that's what we refer to them as. They were only licensed for probably a few days before they took their first placement, and it's going on 2 years now. And these ladies work diligently with service providers on a weekly basis, and have seen this little girl turn into quite the vivacious little thing. So we appreciate the work that you've done. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Okay, next, Buncombe County Commissioners would like to recognize and honor Sarah and Ryan Sperling. Y'all can give them a hand as they come up. On behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board expresses its sincere appreciation to you by presenting you with the Nurture Back to Health Award for fostering children in need. Your outstanding commitment to children and families makes our community a better place. Thank you for being a true example of our motto, People to Match Our Mountains, and it is also signed by all the commissioners. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
So I just want to say that the Sperlings have recently adopted a little girl from us, and they also have another child. No. Sorry. Well, yes, they're still fostering, but yes, what I want to say is, that you are a nurse and you took time off from your job to help nurture a child back to health, and now that they work diligently with the birth mom, with this little child, and in fact attend church together and medical appointments as well with the little girl. So thank you for the work that you do.
Very good.
Thank you.
Those babies are not bothering us, so y'all don't give it a thought. This is a highlight of the evening. So, Buncombe County Commissioners recognize and honor Gina Hager and Kim Leibowitz. Y'all would come on up. On behalf, she's been wanting to say hi to everybody since she got here. On behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board expresses its sincere appreciation by presenting you with the Shining Supporters Award for helping children find their light again. Your outstanding commitment to children and families makes our community a better place. Thank you for being a true example of our motto, People to Match Our Mountains. And again, this is signed by all the commissioners. Thank you so much. Whoa. Thank you. Push those buttons.
So I'd like to say that they just recently adopted a little girl from us. I was confused. I apologize. And again, I have worked really hard with the birth family, navigating through some difficult times, and we appreciate the work that you do and know that everything you do is in the best interest of the children. And it's noticed. Thank you.
She said hello. Buncombe County Commissioners recognize and honor Angela and Chris Anderson. If y'all are right here with the road. Okay. On behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board expresses its sincere appreciation by presenting you with the Perseverance and Dedication Award for providing safety, stability, and dedicated care that has helped young people toward success. Your outstanding commitment to children and families makes our community a better place. Thank you for being a true example of our motto, people to match our mountains. And again, this is signed by all the commissioners. Thank you.
So I want to say that the Andersons are in a unique position. They have been a lifelong resource for these girls, and these two girls here are super successful. They're straight A students, they're athletes, and the oldest has just been accepted into college and is going to be joining their cheerleading squad. So they've done an excellent job. Thank you. So I just wanted to say a few words again to, again, these are just 4 families who represent many of our families that serve our children here in Buncombe County, and we really appreciate the hard work and dedication that goes into the difficult, challenging, and very rewarding work that these foster families provide to our children and to our birth parents, working with them as well. I think that's good for folks to hear that not only are they here to work with the children, but the work that they put in helping to get a lot of these biological parents healthy and reunifying these children as well. So thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
She was a dog. She should. It's all about she's everywhere. She said, can I push some buttons? Sure.
Thank you all for being with us and for all that you do. All right, next up, we have the proclamation of Motorcycle Awareness Month, and Jody Martin will be receiving this, and Commissioner Robert Presley will be presenting it.
We don't stand a chance, do we, after that?
No, that's a tough act to follow right there.
As the County of Buncombe proclamation of Motorcycle Awareness Month, whereas Asheville and Buncombe County motorcyclists have band together to actively promote a more positive image of motorcyclists, promote fair motorcycle legislation, and to ensure motorist freedom, and whereas these motorcyclists are also working to eliminate prejudicial attitude toward motorcyclists and promote participation in public service programs. And whereas these motorcyclist organizations and participate in motorcycle safety, education and ride training programs, and public awareness programs. Whereas the Buncombe County chapter of the Concerned Bikers Association, North Carolina, has requested that the month of May be proclaimed Motorcycle Awareness Month. And whereas this board feels this is the best interest of all the citizens to promote motorcycle safety awareness and to foster the sense of brotherhood and sisterhood among all users of our county roadways. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for this County of Buncombe as followed, that the month of May 17th be proclaimed Motorcycle Awareness Month in Buncombe County. Thanks to all the citizens, Buncombe County are hereby encouraged to join area motorcyclists in an effort to improve traffic safety and increase motorcycle awareness, and this is a proclamation be effected upon this adoption. Adopted this day, 2nd day, May 2017, by the Buncombe County Commissioners, Chairman Brownie Newman. Thank you.
That was a tough act to follow. This is probably close to 20 years we've been doing this. We appreciate you doing it. I kind of miss hearing Bill Stanley talk about his old red panhead that he used. Folks, A lot of you are aware we do go into driver's ed. We're in our 11th year of going into driver's ed classes in Buncombe County, Haywood, surrounding counties to try to make these beginning drivers motorcycle aware. We've got our big yellow billboards going up now. Look out for those all around the county, in Haywood County and Henderson County. And folks, anything you can do to help us make our driving public motorcycle aware helps us out. North Carolina is the 12th leading state in total motorcycle registrations now. Buncombe County is in the top 5 in per capita motorcycle registrations in the state. And we have a lot of riders here. And local riders, we appreciate it. Folks, we have a lot of visitors. You know, we have thousands, if not 10,000 visitors that come to this area every year to ride our roads around here. So anything you can do to help us make the driving public motorcycle aware, we appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you. And finally, we have the proclamation of YWCA Asheville Month. Beth Matska is with us, and Commissioner Ellen Frost will present the proclamation.
I feel especially honored to be giving this proclamation. The YWCA is one of the most unique places in Buncombe County. When I read this proclamation, after I read each one, they do it not 100%, but 150%. I've never seen an organization or a place that touches the lives, whether it's infants learning how to swim or seniors, folks learning how to come off of type 2 diabetes and the programs they have. It is a wonderful, wonderful place, and it's a feel-good place. And the programs they have, the little money they ask us for, and the programs they give us are extraordinary. Whether it's women trying to go back to work, whether it's working with AB Tech students and childcare. So I'll read the proclamation now. And you look a little like Holly. The County of Buncombe Proclamation, YWCA Asheville Month, honoring their 110th anniversary. Whereas the YWCA of Asheville is celebrating its 110th anniversary in May 2017. And whereas the YWCA's mission is eliminating racism, empowering women, promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. And whereas for 110 years, the YWCA has worked to bridge gaps in access to education, economic opportunity, health and wellness for women, children, and families in Buncombe County. Whereas the YWCA is a partner with Buncombe County and other community groups to address institutional racism, sexism, and poverty in our community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Buncombe County Commissioners, 1, that May 2017 be designated as YWCA of Asheville Month in Buncombe County. 2, that we do hereby commend the YWCA of Asheville in its mission and efforts to eliminate racism, empower women, stand up for social justice, help families, and strengthen communities. 3, that this proclamation be effective upon its adopted the 2nd day of May 2017, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, signed by Brownie Newman.
Yeah, a few comments. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Beth Maska, and Holly Jones is a good friend. I am CEO of the YWCA of Asheville. Chairman Newman, County Commissioners, and Dr. Green, thank you for this proclamation celebrating the YWCA's 110th anniversary. I will briefly share some highlights of our rich history that lead up to our current partnerships with Buncombe County today. Starting in 1907, the first location of the YWCA of Asheville opens as a boarding house for self-supporting women. 1913, a group of African American women called the Employment Club began meeting to find jobs and provide support for working black women. 1923, the first official Phyllis Wheatley branch of the YWCA formally opens to offer housing and employment resources for African American working women. In the 1940s, the YWCA Young Wives Club begins offering group childcare during its meetings as the importance of childcare to women's economic sustainability becomes more evident. In the 1970s, to address the fact that pregnant teenagers were being forced to leave school, the YWCA starts the continuing education program for teen mothers. They advocate for a policy change, and within 5 years, this program is absorbed by the Asheville City Schools into their optional program. 1973, the YWCA nursery services expand to women in the wider community by opening the Drop-In Child Care Center. 1985, high dropout rates for pregnant and parenting teens motivate the YWCA to create Mother Love, a program to support teen moms and encourage graduation and further education. 1987, in collaboration with the Buncombe County Women's Commission, the YWCA Women's Center opens. The center offers a job club, resource library, workshops, and referrals. In 1999, the New Choices program, which provides case management, access to child care, group support, and job skill building to serve women living below the poverty level who want to achieve economic self-sufficiency. Jumping ahead to 2014, the Getting Ahead program begins to empower women of all ages and backgrounds living in poverty to take control of their financial future, improve the lives of their families, and better our community. And most recently in 2016, the YWCA Empowerment Child Care, formerly the Drop-In Child Care, expands access to child care for student parents through a new child care partnership with AB Tech. The YWCA also provides on-site child care at the new Family Resource Center. As the proclamation notes, the YWCA addresses gaps in access to child care, education, health, and wellness. Investments from Buncombe County Department of Health and Human Services currently support the Mother Love program that serves 33 teen parents in 8 high schools in Buncombe County. Of the Mother Love participants receiving case management last year, 27 of the 33 teens graduated high school or advanced to their next grade. We are also grateful to host a community connector and to receive additional Department of Health and Human Services support for our Empowerment Child Care program. Last year, Empowerment Child Care provided 9,849 hours of free child care to families seeking economic security. Of the 147 families served, 36 secured full-time employment, 3 secured part-time jobs, 7 parents with disabilities secured benefits, 1 enrolled in a 4-year college, 45 enrolled in community college or vocational training, 25 obtained a child care subsidy and found full-time child care, and 5 parents started their own businesses. These services would not be available to our citizens without the important support of partnership with Buncombe County, and we thank you for your support. The highlights I shared from our history are only a small part of the impactful ways the YWCA has served our community. On behalf of the YWCA Board of Directors, including our Board President, Lindia Child, and board members, Nona Workman, Leslie Fay, and Dr. Bobby Short, we want to invite you all to join us to celebrate our 110th anniversary on May 11th at UNC Asheville from 6 to 8 at Lipinski Auditorium. The community's welcome, and it'll be a big celebration of our archives, oral histories, and our accomplishments. And again, we thank you for your support.
Thank you, and congratulations. All right, next up, we have our public hearing for the rezoning request from R3 to EMP by Duke Energy, and Debbie Trumpy will make the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jason Walls, on behalf of Duke Energy, has applied to rezone 10 parcels totaling 23.59 acres from R3 Residential District to EMP Employment District. The parcels are located on the north side of New Rockwood Road, between I-26 and Fisher's Mill Road, and are vacant with the exception of 3 single-family homes along New Rockwood Road. The parcels are contiguous to the existing Duke Energy plant property. Access to the parcels is largely through the existing power plant property. However, there is direct access to some of the parcels along New Rockwood Road, which is a NCDOT road, and Aberdeen Drive, a privately maintained street providing access to the Lake Julian Trails subdivision. The property to the immediate north of the subject parcels is the Duke Energy Power Plant, and that property is zoned EMP. Properties to the south, separated by New Rockwood Road, are comprised of single-family neighborhoods zoned R3 residential. The Lake Julian Trails subdivision, which is located on the north side of New Rockwood Road, is zoned EMP and portions zoned R3. Properties to the east of the subject parcels near the intersection of Fisher's Mill Road are zoned R3 and contain a manufactured home park and some single-family homes. I-26 is to the west of the subject parcels. The applicant is seeking to rezone the properties in order to provide temporary employee parking and staging of construction materials during the conversion of the existing coal-fired power plant to a new gas-fired plant. The Planning Department recommends approval of the proposed rezonings as it is consistent with the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The 2013 update recommends that commercial and industrial development be within reasonable proximity to major transportation corridors, within combined water and sewer service areas, outside of steep slope areas, outside of high elevations, outside of moderate and high hazard slope stability areas, and outside FEMA flood hazard areas. The subject properties are directly served by a major transportation corridor and are located in the combined water and sewer service area. Only one parcel contains a small area of slope that exceeds 25% and is identified as a moderate hazard slope stability area. The Planning Board held a public hearing on this application April 3rd of this year. The applicant discussed the need to locate the laydown yard and parking next to the plant rather than in off-site locations and the environmental and economic benefits of the plant conversion. He also detailed plans to mitigate the impact on the community, including installation of buffers and landscaping and directing traffic away from the neighboring subdivisions. One person spoke during public comment. She stated she was in favor of the conversion to cleaner energy, but was concerned that there be an adequate buffer provided. The Planning Board found that the proposed map amendments is consistent with the land use plan, as it is readily accessed by a transportation corridor and can be served by public water and sewer. The board further found that the rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest, as it is compatible with the adjacent industrial development and is adjacent to the EMP zoning district, and recommended approval in a vote of 7-0. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for me at this time.
Are there any initial questions from the commission? All right, I don't see any initial questions, so why don't we open the public hearing and see if there's any public comment. So I'm going to open the public hearing at 5:46. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment during the public hearing? Yes, ma'am. Okay, come on up, please.
I'm Henrietta Dillingham, and I'm a property owner in Lake Julian Trails. I did not get to the previous meeting. I just had some questions, though. Were there trees that were going to be cut?
And you can ask the questions, and then we can
Okay.
we can come back and sort of get those answered. Okay.
Were there trees that were going to be cut? We don't really want any more trees cut in our area. I know we have discussed with Duke Energy before the berms they're going to build and that sort of thing. But we are concerned, I guess, because it's going to really increase the amount of traffic that's coming into that area. And that road is probably not going to sustain a lot more. But I understand why they want to have this done, but I'd just like a couple of answers.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Newman, Commissioners, Dr. Green, thanks for considering this request. I'm Jason Walls, the District Manager with Duke Energy, and thank you for considering this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. But before we do, if I just may kind of put the project in context, if you will, very briefly, that this is another step in the process of retiring a coal plant and converting that site to natural gas, and really being able to fully leverage that site and being able to actually move construction traffic. Mrs. Dillingham, we've talked several times, and we've listened to that community, and we understand their concerns around visual mitigation, traffic, and other things, and we've already made some adjustments to help accommodate some of those concerns. One of the adjustments we've made, although Ms. Trumpy recognized that there's currently some street cuts into the subject properties we're asking to be rezoned, we are not going to use those and actually going to close those properties off. We're going to direct employees to use so this is where that map is weird. It is a northeasterly exit before Lake Julian Trail, the entrance of Lake Julian Trails, as the main entrance into the power plant. Also, these properties allow us to cut an internal road to where all construction movement will happen on plant property, and we will not have to use the state road and further kind of degrade or be a nuisance to our neighbors. And so we're trying to be very thoughtful, mindful, and we've had a lot of conversations with neighbors on ways to help address some of their concerns, and we will continue to do that. One other item we're doing is behind Lake Julian Trails, we were actually building a berm and a decorative wall with landscaping on the apartment side of that plant. You know, as part of our efforts to remove coal ash, we actually had to take down trees behind those residential units, and so we're trying to add back some pleasing aesthetic kind of and visual mitigation. And so we're trying to be thoughtful and mindful and work directly with the neighbors to help address a lot of their concerns. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, great. Thank you. And if there's any questions, we can come back to you, Jason. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Fisher. I live in the Hunter's Trace neighborhood, which is across from the 3 homes that were vacated. I guess Duke Energy had purchased them. And I guess my question is, and I think you kind of answered it, they're not planning on going into that area. They're planning on going where the entrance is, further from Lake Julian Trails towards Glenbridge. Is that correct?
Yes. May I? Chairman, may I?
Yes.
So what is going to happen to that property with the vacated homes? Are you going to tear down those trees? Is there going to be a road put in there?
And so can I make a suggestion, ma'am? Why don't you list all the questions, and then we'll ask Jason to come up and respond, or other people from his team to come up and respond to each one of them, okay?
So those are the questions I have. What are they going to do with their property if the homes that they vacated, that they purchased, is there going to be a road built into that area where those homes were vacated? Are they going to leave the trees? Is it going to, the structure of that area going to pretty much stay the same, or what are they going to do with that area that they purchased those homes? That's what my question is.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if there's any other questions, and then if someone from Duke would like to respond, we'll allow that. Any other comments from anybody else who hasn't commented? Okay. What I'd like to do is close the public hearing, but then I think we'd like to hear from Duke any additional thoughts on some of the questions that have come up during the hearing. So I'm going to close the public hearing at 5:52 p.m. and I'll invite Mr. Walls or anyone else to share any additional thoughts based on questions that were asked during the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, you're stuck with me. I'm sorry. But so to answer several of the questions, and if I miss one, let me know. So the homes that were purchased, we will be tearing those homes down. Some of the homes are in disrepair. We just actually I think it was last Thursday or last week, We received the final permits, the erosion and sediment control permits needed to actually tear those homes down. And so that's going to be happening in very due course, and we'll be cleaning up those properties because those vacant buildings have really fallen into disrepair and have been a substantial eyesore to our neighbors across the road in Hunter's Trace. And so we are fixing that very quickly. We will be clearing some of the trees on those parcels there to turn that property into a laydown yard. What that will allow us to do is if I had an aerial map, it will allow us to actually put the road on the inside of the power plant. So once employees get to work, they'll park their cars, but all of the large equipment, the cranes, the machinery, those will actually be able to travel on plant property without having to go on the roadway to eliminate traffic. The road, the entrance road, will actually be closer to Fisher's Mill Road. It'll be in between Fisher's Mill Road and the Lake Julian Trails neighborhood. On that entrance road, we'll be building a 700-foot decorative wall to help provide some visual mitigation to the neighbors of Lake Julian Trails. And I also want to reinforce that we know that this is a temporary use. The company has no plans after we build the plant for this property. And so we have committed to the neighbor, both the Hunter's Trace community as well as Lake Julian Trails, to have very open dialogue about what they would like to see as we finish the plant and leave that area. And while those conversations are ongoing, that is still our commitment to work with the neighborhoods on ways that we can leave that property as a benefit to those communities that, quite frankly, we will have an impact on during construction.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners at this time? Thank you. All right. Commissioners, questions or motion?
I make the motion to approve.
Second.
And Ms. Trumpy, do we need 2 motions for this rezoning?
Yes, please, if you would have one motion and vote on consistency with the land use plan, and then a separate one for approval or denial.
Okay, this is for consistency with the plan.
This motion is in consistency with the plan.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And now I'll entertain a motion to approve or disapprove the rezoning.
So moved.
Make the motion.
Joe, second.
All right, and we got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you all. Thanks for everyone who came for this item. Next on the agenda is 3 initial budget presentations. The first will be from the Asheville City Schools, and I would, before we start these 3, I would also reiterate that on Tuesday, May 16th at noon, the County Commission will hold a budget retreat here at 200 College Street. And we'll be spending that whole afternoon talking about the county's budget in more detail. But we're going to start off this evening with a presentation from the Asheville City School District, and Dr. Bobby Short will make the presentation. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Short.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Green. Thank you for the privilege to share with you Asheville City Schools budget. Tonight we actually would like to tell you what we need, why we need it, and how much we need. Asheville City Schools budget challenges, actually why we need. A quick look at the factors that are influencing our budget request tonight. One is the citywide demographics. The second is increased student enrollment. the classic K-3 class size reduction issue, state mandated increases, and phase 2 of local salary supplements. Actually, we are driven by the privilege and the honor of having increased enrollment. As you can see, the population in the city of Asheville is increasing 1.5% annually since 2002, actually. Also looking at increased enrollment trends from our school age population. Again, this is City of Asheville demographics. You can see that over the next 5 years, we will gain 2,000 students. Especially if you look from 2016 to 2021, we'll have 305 0 to 4 years of age children, an increase of 160 5 to 9-year-olds, 239 increase in 10 to 14-year-olds, and a 261 increase in 15 to 19-year-olds. Our increased enrollment trends in Asheville City Schools, over the past 6 years, we have grown 20%. And according to the Department of Public Instruction demographics, we are one of 19 systems out of 115 that is projected to show significant growth over the next 5 years. And here's a graphic of our enrollment, actually over the past 5 years. And today we have 4,550 students enrolled in Asheville City Schools. That's a reflection of our 20% growth. I'd like to focus for just a moment on Asheville Middle. Thank you for the beautiful new facility. And it is so true that if we build it, they will come. We found that true this school year. We increased by 100 students at Asheville Middle School this school year from last year. If you will look at the totals at the bottom on the slide, from 15-16, we had 699. We're at 799 today. Another way to look at our increased enrollment at Asheville Middle School, if you look at 799, the students we have today in that building, when our third, fourth, and fifth graders get to the middle school in 2019-20, we will have an increased enrollment just by kids in our pipeline today of 320 students. The projected population of Asheville Middle will be 1,117. As you will recall, that building capacity is around 900. Also, the other challenge that we're looking at is K-3 classroom size reduction. And that is having a direct impact on all school districts throughout the state. Actually, we refer to it as HB 13. It is now signed into law, Session Law 2017-9. It allows us the opportunity to phase in those classroom reduction requirements. And I'm going to share those with you in just a moment. And it also requires the superintendents of the school districts to report directly to the State Department of Public Instruction twice a year to verify the class sizes in K-3. Next school year, we will have the opportunity to have 20 students enrolled per class in K-3. This year, we had 21 students. And we always have the flexibility of going up 3 in a classroom. So the max this year was 24. The max next year will be 23, as long as we do not exceed the district's average of 20 students per classroom. So in some classrooms, we could go up as long as we have lower enrollment in other classrooms to maintain that 20 per classroom per district. Another way to look at the classroom size reduction is, again, looking at next year. the HB 13, our projections for next school year, adhering to the 20 per classroom, and in fact, we worked on these numbers today and they worked out exactly as we had thought they would. We will need 5 new teachers to begin to work on this classroom reduction size. And also we project 2 new teacher assistants. If you will look at the next box, that is the requirement for 2018-19. And in kindergarten, year after next, we will be allowed 18 students. In first grade, we will be allowed 16 students. And in second and third grades, we will be allowed 17 students. And you can always add 3 for the max, as long as district-wide we don't go over those numbers. So we projected, had we had to do that this year, we would have needed 13 new teachers. However, with the 5 new ones that we are asking for this year, we will cut that down to 8 year after next. I think the next slide will give you a good idea visually of how this looks in terms of classrooms. This year, just take any school, let's take Claxton for instance. We have 4 first grade classes at Claxton with 21 children in a classroom. According to the new legislation in 2018-19, that will translate into 5 classrooms, just for first grade now, with 4 kids left over. Well, kids don't come in nice packages of 16, 16, 16. So you're always going to have some left over, a remainder, which we think we will have to look at combination classes to satisfy some of those requirements. So that's just an impact at 1 grade level at 1 school. If you multiply that by 5 schools and the impact at grades K, 1, 2, 3, then you can see the magnitude of the issue that all school districts are facing. Our action plan, our responses to the increased enrollment and to the classroom size reduction. I guess the thing that we are most grateful for in Asheville City Schools is that we do have some extra facilities that can be used. In most school districts, they do not have the space. We have the wonderful Montford building, and we also have the preschool building that has space. So in answer to especially the middle school enrollment, we are looking next year for the Montford campus to be the Montford North Star Academy, and it will house only 6th graders. And we are anticipating about 100 students there, and we have future growth plans for a 7th and an 8th grade class. But if need be, as we look at the demographics, it could become a 5-6 school. That is still a possibility with that facility. We are looking at sharing resources with Asheville Middle School in order to help fund, to pay for this 6th grade class at the Montford campus. The second building that we have some space in is Asheville Primary. Next year, we are actually looking forward to still serving our preschool program there, but on the other side of the hall, we would like to serve preschool through 2nd grade, again to help with the enrollment issue and the classroom reduction size issue. We, in the future, would like to expand to grades 3 and then continue to add grades 4 and 5 as our enrollment increases and as we see the need. The Asheville Primary will feature mixed age classes because it will be based on a Montessori theme. We will have 4 classes on what I call the other side of the building, outside of the preschool, and that will be 2 preschool kindergarten classes and 2 1st and 2nd grade classes. Again, getting at the classroom size reduction and using our facilities. The rooms that we are using for the K through 2 classrooms cannot be used for preschool because of the limitations and the requirements. We do pride ourselves on our preschool program. And we will continue that preschool program and, in fact, cultivate it and grow it. Next year, Asheville City Schools will have 7 preschool classes in the preschool building, 18 children each. We will also have 3 of the Verner preschool classrooms, and those are really early Head Start partners, and we provide the space and manage that. In all, we will have 10 preschool classes at the primary site, including the Verner 3. And also, we will have 3 Asheville City Schools preschools at Jones, Hall Fletcher, and Dixon, which are there this year. In all, when we look at the preschool program, and our goal is to have a preschool in all of our elementary schools, we do not get any state funds for preschools. But you can see some of the funding sources there that we do draw from. In Asheville City Schools next year, we will serve 180 preschoolers. That will be our largest number ever for 3 and 4-year-olds. And again, we want to continue to grow that program. What we need to meet our challenges, our funding priorities. These are just some of the highlights of the ways we intend to spend our money to look at meeting the challenges of increased enrollment and also decreasing class size at the same time, which is really a double-edged sword for us. We will expand and focus heavily on the Asheville primary campus, and you can see some of our needs there. We will also be looking at the Montford campus for resources, but mainly the Montford campus will be funded from existing resources at the Asheville Middle School. And other priority fundings include, if we can swing it, another assistant principal at Asheville Middle School. That wonderful building has those 3 levels with 6th grade on the top and then 7th and 8th. And we need really an administrator on each floor to help manage our students and make sure that we are safe. Then in the class size reduction, I've already alluded to the fact that we would like to look at 5 new teachers this year to begin to reduce classroom size so it will not be such a whammy for us year after next. And then other resources that we would look at would include day treatment assistance. I have been out of the school business for 3 years now, and I will tell you that I have been amazed this year as I came back at the needs of our children in terms of mental health facilities and just help for those children. So we have begun a day treatment program at each of our levels, elementary, middle, and high school, and we would like to grow those. Also, we're looking at our state mandated increases, the salary increases that we think will come, 5% for certified and 3% for non-certified, and then the benefit cost increase, the retirement rate, and the insurance will be going up. Our local increases, we are hopeful that we can implement phase 2 of the local salary supplement, and we have given you some of those estimates for us. Last year with the local salary supplement, we did address the living wage issue, and we also increased the last step of the local salary supplement for those employees who had 20 years or more experience. I guess now we're to the bottom line, our ask, and it's pretty simple. We are asking for a 5% increase over last year. We would be hopeful that we might be able to have the local salary supplement. And then for us, a very separate funding issue is the Asheville District supplemental tax, which I call the school tax. We now are funded at 15 cents. We would ask that we be funded at 13 cents. We would like the 15, but we would be so grateful, but we're hopeful we'll get 13 cents. And then we will be looking at the Asheville City Schools fund balance because we are opening the 2 new campuses, and we are going to have to use some of our own funding to do that, but we are healthy enough that we think we can do that. We want to thank you for always being supportive of the school systems. We couldn't ask for better county commissioners nor for more support. And we know that you have everyone to look out for, and we just appreciate being part of the everyone. And we know that you will fund us as generously as you can, and we will look forward to that. I have been the superintendent of Asheville City Schools for 30 days now. So if you have any really hard questions, I'm not sure that I will have the answers, but I do have the Asheville City Schools leadership team with me back here, if all of you would wave, and our board chair, and those are the experts back there. So we will be happy to entertain any questions that you have, and if you don't have any, we'll be very happy about that also.
I have just a couple. Thank you. It's great to see you, and thanks for being willing to serve this. Can you explain more about what the day treatment means? What that entails?
Yes, we we fund locally a teacher at the elementary level, and then we are partnering with a mental health agency who actually, I believe, draws down Medicaid from our students. And we have begun a program at the elementary level, had actually 2 classrooms on the preschool site, and we have just sent those children back to their home schools with some push-in supports at the school level. We have a class at the middle school which has been phenomenal in terms of helping those children cope and get back into the classrooms and know how to de-escalate themselves in the classrooms. And also we have a classroom at the high school in which we have counselor support and sessions with those students.
And then I know at one point Hill Street, thanks for all the pre-K, that's awesome. I know at one point Hill Street was talking about working with the city for another pre-K. Is that coming along? Or?
Right now, we have been told that they already have 2 site licenses and they're not supposed to have more than 2. Although I guess the latest word, and Mandy can help me with this, is that maybe that could be gotten around. And also our consultant told us that that facility was not appropriate for the preschool, but we have our preschool expert here who is the principal of Asheville Primary, but she's also our preschool director, so she might be able to give you a little more information than just the surface information.
And your preschool formula is it's all levels of economic background?
Yes, it is.
Everybody's together?
Everybody is together, absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
I have a comment, question, maybe for Dr. Green in light of HB 13. I understand that what you are thinking is that you might want to try to get a jump on next year, but my understanding is that this year has been bumped out, that there's no mandated requirements
it delays the
for this
requirement
year.
until next year.
So as far as the budget, when we look at that, wouldn't necessarily have to be done. But I understand, your concept on wanting to maybe make a jump on it. Other than, are we sure that next year that mandate will be what we know it to be
I don't think I would have an answer for that. It's hard to predict.
Crystal ball's in the shop, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but this year, it has been
I will
moved.
tell you that we are going from 21 in a classroom this year down to 20 next year. So there is some decrease already taking place.
And is that on your own decision, or is that from the state?
That's according to HB 13, to the new law. So they have reduced the class size. They only reduced it by 1. The following year, they've reduced it down to 17, 18, 16, 17, 17. A big jump.
But as long as your average does not exceed the 20.
The magic number, whatever that is at the grade level.
Whatever that is, right.
Yeah, you can pack some kids more in some classes, but somewhere you have to offset it so the average is whatever class size they ask you to do. And if you do not do that, the school district could lose funding from the state.
Yeah, we really wasn't sure the impact until the final bill comes. But, you know, that's with any bills that we have to work through. But thank you for a clear explanation on how y'all were planning on working with
You're
that.
welcome. Thank you. And thank you for being supportive again. It's always an honor and a pleasure to share with you. Thank you.
I have just a couple of questions. If the class size reductions do go forward as currently contemplated over the next couple of years, this may be different in different circumstances, but at a high level, are the school districts planning to, I mean, there's all these additional costs that come along from doing that, right? In terms of you need more teachers, you need more classroom space.
You need more materials,
nobody's going to argue
furniture, everything, if you have to do a new complete class.
Is there an assumption that if you have smaller class sizes, you'd have overall fewer teacher assistants because of the smaller class sizes, and that's one of the other kind of variables that'll be factored into how this would all play out if it does go down the path that's being talked about right now?
I believe that will be a trading chip. Because I think the reasoning, I really don't know the reasoning at the General Assembly, but I would think the reasoning is that if you have fewer children in a classroom, you wouldn't need as many adults.
Okay.
So right now we have assistants funded for kindergarten through second grade.
Mm-hmm.
And at the second grade level, the principal can decide how they would like to use that assistant. But in the future, we may decide to fund kindergarten through first grade or to have a savings.
Okay. The other question, go back to the North Star facility on Montford Avenue. So what's known now is that there'll be a sixth grade opened in that building, and that'll start this fall?
This coming year, we have 87 students already enrolled.
Okay.
And we think about 100 will be the max.
That's great.
Okay. And how long will you be taking, what's the time frame for folks who are interested in that to apply?
Until we reach 100.
Okay. All right. So through this spring, summer, folks who are interested in that.
Right.
So you're still kind of promoting it. It's a new school.
We are. And actually, we were hopeful that we would have 50 students.
Mm-hmm.
And we have really been amazed at the interest in a small setting. We normally lost children at the middle school age level. They would come to us through elementary.
Right.
They would depart to go to charter schools at the middle school level, and they came back to the high school. But this year, and I believe thanks to that gorgeous new building
Well, yeah.
and other initiatives, but that is such a big drawing card. We didn't lose students to other businesses.
Well, that's great. And so sixth grade will start in the fall, and then a decision will be made to build it out as a sixth, seventh,
and eighth.
grade, basically smaller middle school.
Right.
Or there might be a chance it's more like an intermediate school of 5, 6. But the primary scenario is that it's going to be a smaller
Setting.
middle school
Right.
in the system.
With a STEM school.
It is. It's a STEM school.
Okay.
Yes.
Terrific. Any other questions?
I have an observation. Oh,
You go ahead.
you go. No, you
Just
first.
a quick follow-up on Brownie's question. So, as we start the new school year later this summer, you'd anticipate 100 students at North Star and around about 800 at Asheville Middle, based on current numbers, so about 900 total middle school students.
Yes.
Okay, great.
We may lose a few at the middle school going to a smaller school setting, but actually we've been very surprised at the enrollment numbers staying pretty consistent at the middle school, but with an increase. I think the increase we're seeing would be those students who would have left.
Great, thank you.
I have a question and an observation. It's good to see all of you again. And I will say that I mentor once a week. I'm in the middle school. And I agree with you. Since I rotated off the school board 4 years ago, it's unreal how it's changed and the challenges that they have.
It really is.
I see weekly what you're up against, but the staff there is doing an excellent job. But the question I have might not relate to the budget, but since you're here, I'm curious, do you still have SROs in the elementary schools?
Yes, and we're requesting another SRO. I don't know if you noticed up on the screen.
Yes.
We have one that is shared among all the elementary schools. We have one at the middle school, and we have two at the high school. So we're requesting an additional SRO to help cover Montford and the primary school, and also help with the other elementary schools. We would divide those campuses between the two SROs.
You know, the question I have, I can understand the need of SROs at the middle school and at high school, but I hope we aren't sending the wrong signal to young people in elementary schools. Because sometimes, and I've heard this from SRO officers, they feel that they're used more for discipline when they shouldn't be. And with the young kids, that's sending a message that concerns me because they come up fearing police officers rather than they're people who can help them.
Yes.
And that's why I question that if we could better use them in the neighborhoods, you know, policing, or you call them when they need it, but to have them in elementary schools on a daily basis.
Well,
that's just my thought.
I agree with you in that we don't want to use SROs for discipline at the elementary schools. What our goal is to have the SROs visible, know the kids, let the kids know them, know that they are a friend, an asset, an ally, and not someone to come do whatever to them.
Good.
Have other schools, especially in elementary schools, adopted more mental health specialists in those young years?
Yes, we do. That's part of the day treatment program.
Right.
We have an on-site therapist there that works with students in each of the elementary schools, in each of the schools.
So have you contemplated, instead of the SRO in the elementary school, additional mental health needs?
I'm sorry, Ellen, I didn't.
Instead of having an SRO in the elementary school, more mental health specialists, in addition to that, more, increasing that number that you have now, instead of the SRO?
Are you asking, is that a trade-off?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, instead, keeping everything as you have now, but instead of an SRO, a mental health specialist, additional, if that's where the need is.
I would have to turn to the staff. Actually, we'd have to.
It's just a theoretical question.
Right.
Yeah.
So along that line of discussion, I was in a meeting this morning with the Irwin district principals.
Right.
At Irwin High School, and let's see, 13-14 budget, Dr. Green, I think we approved $1.2 million for additional SROs in Buncombe County. I remember the number.
It's after Sandy Hook.
And it was for the elementary schools, to go in the elementary schools. I can tell you at some of it's different at different schools.
It is.
Because it's different in Irwin and Pisgah, but the ones that I have seen have been just friends to the children. They go in, they're reading to the kids. They are trying to minimize
fear.
Whether if there's fear, and I mean, one blue light's behind me, I get a little, but it's just the part of the uniform. But we approved that so that the young kids would have someone that would make them feel more safe and someone they could actually go to. So I think building on that relationship is a good thing to do, as well as some of the other needs that you might have within school. They were talking about, mental health needs, but they were also talking about where the SROs were being used, that some were spread a little thin, and they would like, as you've requested, maybe another. But so I think in general, where the relationship between the SRO and the school is really good, that they're both the principals as well as SROs are doing a fantastic job from what I hear. So.
Right.
Great. All right, Dr. Short,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much. Thank you all
Appreciate it.
for being
Thank
with us
you.
from the
Thank
City School
you.
District.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all your great work. All right, next up is Asheville
Sure.
Buncombe
Green.
Technical Community College.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. King, thank you for being with us. Good to see you as always.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come in and present to you our budget requests for this year. The way we're going to proceed is in 3 steps. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of who we are at the college, what we're doing, because I think there's some numbers there that you may be interested in. Then we are going to move into the budget request, and after that I'm going to have an in-depth explanation of our capital improvement projects which we're asking you to fund this year, and that will be done by Dr. Dirk Wilmuth, who's sitting over here to my left. He is my right. He is our CFO at the college. The college was founded, of course, in 1959. We are approved by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, the Commission on Colleges. This is the accrediting body for the southeastern part of the United States. It's vitally important that we're accredited, and we are, in fact, through to 2024. Presently, we have 59 academic programs, 17 diplomas, and 55 certificates. Now, some of those certificates are taken from a diploma or a 2-year degree, a diploma being a 1-year activity. The important thing in that number 59 is that 54 of those programs are all in workforce development areas. They are the kinds of things that lead directly to work, directly to jobs in Buncombe County. And as a matter of fact, we pay attention to that on a regular basis, because if we are running a program which does not lead to jobs, then we cancel it. Because we want the students who go into those programs to know that they can get an academic degree which will also lead them to a job. Only 3 of our programs, and they're very popular, but only 3 of our programs lead to university transfer. That's the Associate in Arts, the Associate in Science, and the Associate in Engineering degrees. All of those transfer through an articulation agreement that we've worked out with the university system into the 4-year institutions. And the articulation agreement is so smooth now that the student is guaranteed, when finishing his transfer degree with us, to be able to take all of those credits into the university and be in junior status there at the university. Continuing education, of course, you know about. The thing in there that we're probably the most proud of is basic adult education and high school equivalency. We take people who have no training whatsoever, in fact, people who are cannot speak English, and we bring them up to a level where they can take classes at the college level itself. That's adult basic education. We have a number of proposed new programs, which I think we have mentioned before, but it's worth taking a look at them. I have a home for the interventional cardiovascular technology program. We will be beginning that one in January of this year on the 4th floor of the new Allied Health Building. The rest of the programs on there are all in the investigatory stage. We're looking to see if we can get some of them started. Mr. Fryer, you'll be interested that avionics and aviation maintenance are 2 programs that you suggested to us, and they appear to be viable, and so we're taking a real hard look at getting those 2 programs going. The enrollment this year was very healthy. 9,991 students in curriculum classes. Those are the ones seeking college degrees and diplomas. Now, the reason why that number is as large as it is because students don't necessarily go semester after semester in a neat model as we used to in the 60s and 70s. Instead, many of our students drop out for a semester. We call them stop-outs, but they are still seeking a degree. So when you put the students who were with us in the fall, and that's about 7,500, and the students who were with us in the spring, that's about a little over 7,000, and you have the dropouts, those who stopped out for the semester. Our total number in the 2 large semesters of the year was 9,991 students. Continuing education, the various activities there, 13,489 students for a total of 22,863 people taking some sort of activity at AB Tech during the year that we're about ready to complete. And then a number that I'm real proud of, I want to share with you here. By the way, the slide was updated about 4 o'clock this afternoon, so that number is no longer accurate. Degrees and diplomas that we will be awarding on the 13th of May, degrees and diplomas will be 1,010. We also will be awarding 295 certificates. Again, a small group of courses, about 4 to 5 in a field that gets the person ready to go out and get a job real quickly. 295 certificates for a total of 1,305 degrees, diplomas, and certificates that we will be awarding this semester. The total enrollment at AB Tech, anybody who's ever touched any course with us since 1959, is 339,000 people and over 90% of that number are Buncombe County residents, well over 90% of that number. Employees right now, 249 full-time staff, 178 full-time faculty, and then part-time staff of 114 and 473 part-time faculty members for a total of a little over 1,000 people who work in some fashion at AB Tech. And now our budget request. We are asking this year for $7,800,000 from you. That is an increase over the previous year, and we'll talk about that in a moment. In addition, we are putting into that an anticipated fund balance of $846,979. So the operating revenue of the year is going to be, we're proposing, is $8,646,979. The expenditures will be exactly the same with our operating budget of $7,126,979 and a capital improvement plan, which again you're going to hear about very shortly, of $1.5 million, adding up to the total that we are asking for. The increase is principally 2 things. First of all, last year we did not ask you for a salary increase for our employees. However, our county employees. However, the state gave an increase to our state employees, and as a consequence, we had to give that same increase out of the county budget to the county employees. That's about 50 people. That means that the number that we're asking for this year goes up by the raise that was given last year. In addition, the governor's budget right now is proposing a 2% raise and a $500 bonus. That's the only thing we've heard from the General Assembly, and so we have built that into the number there. So part of the increase we're asking for is that raise we gave last year and we've got to give again this year, and the raise that we're anticipating the General Assembly giving to state employees. In addition, the major capital projects add up to, for this year, $1.5 million. And I'm going to ask Dirk to explain those to you. I think we have a slide on that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. One thing that we've noted since I've been at AB Tech for the last year or so is that we have an aging physical plant. And one of the things that the leadership of the college was able to address a couple of years ago was a full facilities assessment, condition assessment. And so in 2015, they did a capital improvement plan, a two-year plan to address the shortcomings, deferred maintenance at the institution. And this was to be updated annually. However, it wasn't really funded except through the reserves that the college has had on hand over the last couple of years. We have now revised that for this year, and this document, I don't have a copy for you, full copy today, but I will send this to each of you so you'll be aware of the condition assessment as well as our prioritization of the deficiencies that need to be addressed over the next 10 years. And we did include that 3-page spreadsheet in your budget package from us. So if you want to get a rush look at that, you can go in and see what we've done to prioritize those needs over the next 10 years. Those assessments address things such as roofs, HVAC controls, health and safety, life safety, sustainability, energy efficiency, and then also we have put in building longevity concerns, and most notably the fact that while we have a beautiful campus with these fluted bricks, the reality is that they're a very porous material and they need to be routinely cleaned and sealed. And so we built into the budget a routine plan for doing that starting next year, starting with Simpson and then Elm, which is another issue, a building that needs to be addressed fairly quickly. And then we would proceed with this plan over the next 10 years, asking for your support as well as identifying other sources of support as we have done already. If you'll look at the spreadsheet that is in your packet, you'll see that a great many of the deficiencies that we cited 2 years ago have been addressed with Connect NC bond funds. And so that's gotten us a head start. But moving forward, we can't continue to ignore the deferred maintenance that's there, and we want to make the investments in repair and replacements that need to be made moving forward. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions at this time?
So, yeah, I do have one. So, I've looked at this, but it's really hard to read a lot of the smaller stuff. But as far as the maintenance, when did you say the maintenance program was adopted?
The assessment was done in 2015, and it identified a 10-year plan that was to be moved forward every year.
Okay.
It's been revised this year. There were some projects that were accomplished last year and this year, but moving forward, there's a consistent and a forward-looking plan that will address those items in priority order.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So we're going to get that plan?
Yes, I'll send that to you.
And what that has is the document that you've already received, column by column, the explanation of for example, the 1.5 million we're asking for this year, but then the rest of the next 10 years. But in there is also an explanation of each building that we own and the condition of that building.
Could you translate once again just the end of useful life cycle term that is on the capital improvement plan? Just I don't work in the field.
Okay, yes. Well, obviously, a lot of the buildings that we have, the older inventory, some of those buildings are 30, 40 years old. And so usually when you capitalize a building, you've showed depreciation over its useful life, which typically for a building would be 50 years. But with HVAC equipment or roofs, It could be 20 years or whatnot. So that is addressing the fact that we have a lot of our assets that are now nearing the end of their useful life. They need to be replaced.
Roofs are probably the best example there.
So when you say that, it's not that this particular building is near the end of its cycle, it's that the roof on the Bailey building is at the end of its cycle.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay,
right.
and that the flooring, in the early college at Birch is at the end of its cycle.
Yes.
So you've got to have a plan to replace that,
correct.
which helps maintain that big building. So,
Yes.
yeah, so that's good. All right, thanks.
You were gracious enough to take Commissioner Whiteside and I and Trustee Gene Bell, he's still here. And, I've been back and forth at AB Tech for various things, but I was really horrified at the state of some of those buildings, and it was almost like two different worlds. The beautiful Allied Health building, and then 2 blocks over, the leaking, the smell. Well, you did say it had a good air quality report. So it would be easy to point fingers and say, how this got to be the state it's at. But I think for the public and for us and our tax dollars, we really need a concrete plan of going forward, so we don't have a bright new building and then one falling apart not too far away. And also, so I hope we can get that. Also, I think at the time we asked for a list of the most popular classes, the ones that people were achieving the most success in, to get that. Also, I think we had asked quite a while ago the racial breakdown of the faculty and also the applicants as far as diversity. And then also, I think somebody said when we were there, the incubator and brewery at Inca, the utilities on that were greater than at the campus. Is that right?
No, the building is quite large out there at Inca, and it's certainly not efficient, but by no means is it drawing down more than the campus itself.
Is it possible to get those numbers of what the utility bills are?
Sure.
I don't have any questions right now, but I appreciate the presentation, and I do think that I'm glad we're spending time talking about the maintenance needs, because it's not the always the glamorous new projects, but it's an important responsibility to make sure we take care of these facilities long term. So I'm glad we have this, and as with all the different budget items, of course, we're going to have difficult decisions to make about prioritization of that, but we do need to take care of these buildings and make sure we get the full value we can get out of them. So I think this is a really important discussion, and I'm glad we're getting this presentation this evening and the plan for what that would look like for this year and the years ahead. So thank
We'll
you,
have that
thank you very
document
much.
delivered to you tomorrow.
Can we get the other information too, as far as the most successful programs, the graduation rates, and most attended, and also the diversity breakdown of faculty and the applications?
I can do the second part of that tomorrow. I can't do the most popular program thing in a day, but we can get it to you.
That'd be great.
Great. Are there?
I would like one other comment. I would like to say that this, the capital improvement plan that you've given us and the way that you have spread this out is very clear on each of these buildings as to what the needs are and replacing, and it looks like it's very well thought out, and I appreciate it. It's very easy to look at this and determine what you're going to be doing to these buildings and when, and to see that each of them have some work that needs to be done, that you're going to be taking care of that. I think that when we look at the buildings, the fluted buildings, there's a lot of buildings like that around. Isn't the BB&T building like that they're redoing? It looks a lot like it, but anyhow.
No, it's not.
Anyhow. He says it's not. It's not. I don't examine them that close to be able to find out.
I
But
used to work in that bill.
there you go. Well, I told you. He knows. But I think that, to maybe part of Commissioner Frost and some others, maybe they comment and going out and seeing something. I think any buildings there are times when you can catch them on a good day or a good month or a good year, and they need work. And so I think, for me, I just want to know, how you're taking care of that. And I'm not going to get into the weeds on it. It's just to be able to know that those other great buildings out there, we know that the way they're made, I'll give a, shout out to John and Dr. Green on that, on the way those buildings are done. You're not constructed, you're not going to have the same issues.
That's right.
We're not even going to have this discussion. Well, I'm not going to have this discussion because I'm not going to, I hope I'm around, but I'm not going to be in this seat down there, many, many years down the road. But so I think those precautions have been taken on the new buildings. It's the old buildings that we're concerned about. And if there's not a good capital plan or a good maintenance plan, then it does, make us concerned. But it would be very easy for you to give us that, and then that concern could probably be pretty easily removed, I think. So as long as it's a good plan like this, so the capital plan, I'll just give you kudos for that. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to commend you too. I think it's a good preventative maintenance plan. Unfortunately, we haven't had that all along, but going forward, I agree, Joe, that should eliminate a lot of the problems that you have today. Because it's obvious with some of those buildings I went into, it wasn't much of a plan before, but good.
Just a quick comment and question. I don't want to not pause for a second about those 1,300, more than 1,300 folks who are getting degrees and
great.
certificates. That's
Mhm.
great
That's
news. Thank you
great.
for sharing
Yeah.
that, and
Sure is.
congratulations to all of those students. Yeah.
great.
I did have a quick question. Just while we're looking at this document, and thanks for the clear presentation of it. I note that Elm doesn't show up very often, and just wondered if that was reflective of the current sort of prognosis for Elm.
Yes,
and
it is.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
And if Elm remains with us, then we will have to reassess
Get into here.
the work that needs to be done in Elm.
Okay. But this sort of is Elm kind of on it. Okay, that's indicative of the DNR status for Elm.
Right.
Okay.
DNR.
Okay. Thank you.
It was.
I got that. I got it.
It was helpful too, I think for some of us, when we saw something like $6 million in the budget called maintenance, I was under the impression it was for maintenance, and Dirk was very kind and explained how that's broken down. So, because it gave the impression of maintenance being performed, but it's not that at all. So thank you.
The budget covers electricity, things like that.
Well, and
plus-
salaries and,
plus
yeah,
salaries.
salaries
A
was a good
large-
portion of that, yeah.
Large part of it covers both of our maintenance people and our police force. A couple of years ago, we went from having a security guard force that was not armed to a sworn deputized police force. And that cost the county a lot of money. But with the kinds of things that have happened on college campuses, it was the only prudent thing to do.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so right now, we have a sworn police force. You will see two different kinds of automobiles in our police force. One for security guards who are on duty after hours in the evening, but the police force that's there during the day, making sure that the campus is safe.
Do me a favor, when you're looking at maintenance, paint the sign at Inca for me.
I'm sorry?
Paint the sign at Inca for me,
Sure,
please.
sure.
Okay.
I think
Thank
we're
you.
going to put some new signs.
I said I wasn't going to get in the weeds. I just got in the weeds, didn't I? Did I get in the
Yeah,
weeds?
literally.
All right. Any other questions at this time? Thank you both for being with us very much.
Yeah, good. That's good.
All right. Dr. Green.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to present the 2018 budget tonight. As you know, we have many departments and locations where citizens can access our service. So I wanted to start the presentation tonight by sharing a video of some of those locations. So there's some that people will never really see without this. It gives you a good bit of information about the broad variety of services that we provide and the number of locations where we provide those services. I do want to thank Shannon Caprizzelli, who's our drone pilot, who did this footage for us. And yes, you have to be licensed to be a drone pilot these days. I also want to thank, before we start, several members of our staff who've done just a really good job to get us to this point tonight. I want to thank Diane Price, Autumn Lovers, and Matt Evans, who are sitting here in the back. I also want to thank all our department heads and their support staff that have helped put these budgets together. It's a lot of work. It starts in November when we start coming in with capital plans, goes right on through the end of June when they start wrapping it up after everybody's adopted it. So thank you to all of you. I appreciate it a great deal. So let's talk a little bit about our budget. Okay. This budget is, the 2018 budget is $419,289,000, and it's comprised of both a non-general and a general fund components. The non-general fund components, which are paid with fees and special revenues and restricted taxes, include solid waste, insurance, air quality, fire districts, occupancy tax, and 911 funds. The general fund portion, and I would say before we get to the general fund, while we focus on the general fund because it's where our mandated programs are and where the bulk of our property tax, or where our property tax and key revenues are located, I do want to acknowledge that all of our revenues come from our citizens and visitors to our community, and we are very conscious of that. This budget was developed using a 55.9 tax rate, and the general fund portion of the budget is $320,079,000 or $80,000. It's a 2.1% increase in general fund expenditures. In 2003, the General Assembly passed a law that said for each taxing unit has to publish a revenue-neutral rate in a reappraisal year, and using the new real estate value. Well, our values did go up a great deal this year, and it is the taxable properties in the tax base that generate our property tax levy. I would say that we also have a significant nonprofit, non-taxable base also. So in calculating a revenue-neutral rate, we would take a look at what our year would be like without a reappraisal. So it would be what were our revenues last year, what was growth, because the statute's very clear about keeping growth, and then we use this new tax base that comes from the reappraisal to generate the tax rate that we would need to have that much money come into our budget, 17 plus growth. And that tax rate would be 51.3 cents. In our appeal loss, we've used $340 million, and we will have a further discussion about that on the 16th so that we know how the process worked and how we reached that number. So our old rate is 60.4, revenue neutral is 51.3, and we have used 55.9 to develop this budget. A penny is now worth $3.6 million. So finding cuts at this point is a pretty, it's a big leap to get to a penny. If we talk about our revenues for a few minutes, property tax here in the yellow is by far is our primary revenue, and by legislative design, it's the source that we have the most control over. We also receive sales tax revenue, and that is authorized by the General Assembly with some restrictions, and distribution of sales tax can be changed by the legislature at any time. And then we have intergovernmental revenue that we will also talk about as we go through this process. Some people like to see a pie chart, and some people like to see a chart. Property tax represents 62.7% of our revenue stream. Let's talk for a minute about sales tax. Sales tax in Buncombe County is 7%, 7 cents on a dollar. That's collected by our vendors and sent to the North Carolina Department of Revenue. They keep 4.75 cents of that, and they send 2 1/4 cents back to the community. And as it comes back into the community, we have to distribute it several different ways. Let's see if I can see this red dot. Here we go. The first half penny goes to the School Capital Commission Fund for K-12 bricks and mortar. A quarter of a penny is Article 46, and we have used that for education, but it's used as defined in a resolution by the commissioners. So that leaves a penny and a half that we move on through here and distribute to K-12 for, we call that current capital, but it's basically equipment, some major maintenance. It's rarely the bricks and mortar, but you might see some major maintenance like roofs come out of that money. We give that to the schools every year, and they have total discretion over that. The 21 fire districts also receive a portion of the sales tax. Our municipalities receive a portion of the sales tax, and then we get to the portion that we get to keep, which is about 8.5% of the total, or 0.6 of a cent is the best way to put it. So 2 1/4 comes back to us, and we end up with 0.6 of a cent for the Buncombe County General Fund. As you look at, yes, sir.
Just to comment on that slide. Can you back up?
I think I can, yeah.
Okay, one is I want to say how cool that slide is.
Thank you.
And is that being posted? Someone will make a suggestion, okay? Is that being posted to where anybody can see that slide? That's a good slide for for anybody to understand sales tax and how it's distributed. I mean, elementary school could have that, you know, but it could.
We're happy to post it and share it both. We did prepare it for the budget, so this is the first time we've used it, but we're happy to share it.
Okay, so the other thing is that if you go back to like would be a very good visual to explain where the property tax money goes, or where the general fund money goes.
Good point.
Okay, if you can do the roads and, you know, that this is the different places where the money lands, you know, when we get closer to the budget.
Okay.
'Cause that's a really, really good visual.
Thank you.
And it's a keeper, so.
I will share that with Dustin.
You might be able to use it on some of the other things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
If we look at a little different way of looking at the sales tax, we generated in 2016 $331 million worth of sales tax in Buncombe County. $226.5 million of it, the big blue area here, went back to the state. There's several boxes here, but basically $42 million of it went to education. 25 million, basically 26 went to municipalities, and we in the county end up here with $28.3 million of sales tax. We're always grateful to have it, and we are very nervous when they start looking at it, making changes to it in Raleigh, and they tend to do that every session. The other funding stream that I want to talk about is intergovernmental revenues. When I found this slide, I really did like it. This is where your federal money goes. So if you take a look at it, if we send $100 to Washington, they're going to put it into several of these pots: Social Security, Medicare, Defense, Medicaid. This is to health care issues down here, veterans. So if you take a look, it's cleanly in different pots. Well, we do get intergovernmental revenue for paying. They pay us for our service, and they pay us to reimburse some of our expenses. So coming into our general fund would be monies from, say, Medicare, Medicaid, some transportation, that's not in the general fund, but it does come into us, and some housing assistance. So those are the primary areas where we get intergovernmental revenue to operate our budget, and that represents 16.7% of our funding stream. But I think a really much larger point, too, that we need to make is in our community, a lot of this money comes back. If we're an aging population, so we have people who receive Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, and some other health issues, health funding is provided for on their behalf, and that benefits our health care providers. There's food stamps, which they receive. So when you look at what our citizens receive, it turns over in our community many times. So the impact we have is not just what you might see in the EMS and human service budget from the intergovernmental. It really is a large impact from what the citizens receive also. One other thing we use to avoid having to raise property tax is appropriated fund balance. And a fund balance is simply the cumulative impact of revenues less expenditures over the life of our organization. We are required to have a fund balance. And historically, we've appropriated fund balance and have a great track record of not using that fund balance. So if you look over the 10-year period here, or 11-year period, you can see we've appropriated fund balance every year, and we have yet to use any fund balance and do not anticipate using it in 2017 either, which is something we watch very closely.
So I guess my question is, why are we appropriating so little fund balance when we're asking citizens potentially to have a big tax increase?
Because we've actually cut back on areas in our departments where we've known we would have savings. We've already cut back on those to get to this budget tonight. So we don't have as much fund balance to appropriate or areas where we can save. We continue to look at that, but right now we're not in a position to say we can appropriate $6 or $7 million and feel like we can save it.
So the resources are depleted? I'm not
resources
following
are not
why.
The resources are not depleted. When we do fund balance, we always try to know basically where we're going to save that, what departments traditionally don't spend as much, where we might have different it's a complex process to sit down and say, okay, we think we will have less expenditures or generate more revenue, and we have use that up and cut departmental budgets back by some of those things, so we won't have those savings, and therefore we cannot appropriate as much fund balance.
I have to say, I think that I'm actually really glad to see this. The appropriation of a lot of fund balance in the past, I've never quite been totally, because it's sort of like we show a lot and then we never spend it.
That's right.
Which to me, it's great that we don't spend it, you know, but it seems that if we really tightened it up, then we shouldn't, I don't know. I've always felt we should show less plans to do that in the first place, but in the past, just based on the past practice of actually finding ways to not need it, it's always worked out in a positive way. But I like the idea of just trying to project as accurately as possible what we anticipate we will need in the departments and forecasting less of it. So I personally think it's a positive that we're showing something that is a lot less fund balance used in the budget.
I agree with what you're saying, but in light of people paying a lot more taxes, I don't know that this is quite the year to cut it so tight, but I guess we can further explore it.
It's a good question, for sure.
Okay. So if we look at the combination of our property tax, our intergovernmental revenue, our sales tax, and our fund balance, that represents 89.63% of our funding stream for this budget. So that's where we get our money. Now, what do we do with it, and why? If you look, we are a creature of the counties are created basically to administer state level programs, and we don't govern alone. We're very much told some of the things we have to do. So if you take a look at this top box, that reflects the mandated county services that we have. It includes things like public safety, human service, emergency management, property tax assessment, elections, register of deeds, building code enforcement, and education, in a summary. So we are required to provide those services. Those services represent 92% of the expenditures in our budget. If you come down and take a look at the blue box, there are things that we can also provide if we want to that are optional just for counties. And there you see we do provide soil and water and cooperative extension. The next box is a little bit hard because it overlaps what both municipalities and counties can do these, but if we stay focused in this box right here, those are the optional services that we can provide. And those include things like our solid waste, our library, our mountain mobility, ambulance services, parks and recreation, stormwater, land regulation, to name a few. So when you look at 92% of our expenses being consumed by the mandated services, it doesn't leave very much to provide these optional services. So taking a look at the functional portion of our spending, you see that human service is 35.6% of our expenditures, public safety is 28.3%, education is 23.7%. And in the general fund is where, general government is where you would see register deeds, tax, and elections. So those are the areas that consume 92% of the budget.
Those are gross numbers, right?
They're expenditures, yes.
Expenditures.
I have not netted them for revenues.
Okay.
Just provide you a different way to read it if you prefer tables. But instead of just looking at the functions where we spend our money, I thought we'd also look at the nature of our expenditures. If you look, 41% of our budget is salary and benefits, and we have almost 1,500 employees. Basically, 17% is operating expense. Thank you so much. I've been battling a cold, I'm very sorry. And operating expense for us includes everything from cars to computers to food for the inmates to medical supplies for the inmates and just office supplies that we need to run our different departments. And then we have program support, which is money that we actually send to other people who control the expenditure of that. There's specific things they have to spend it on, but that includes our contribution to education, contribution to economic development, and then our nonprofit recommendations and funding. And then some of our DSS services like Medicaid transport, child care subsidies, foster care, and emergency assistance. If you if you take a look at those, it gives you a better sense of the nature of our expenditures, not necessarily the category. And this is just another way to look at that, and it tells you not just the percentages, but the dollars, and I've also included the debt service there. So let's talk about the individual expenditures. Education is a mandated service area. It's some of the local options you have really are around supplements, but they're very clear about many of the things that we have to provide in education. So that's county schools, city schools, and AB Tech. I wanted to point out, and I thought this was a pretty good graph because we have kids in so many different types of educational units. We have about 38,000 K-12 students. 63% of those are in county schools, 11% are in city schools, 5 in charter, 9 in private, and 11% are homeschooled. So if you look, it's a bigger percentage in private and homeschool than I realized until we did this research. Now, both city and county schools have to share the funding they receive from both the state and the county with the charter schools. And you'll see that in their budget when you read the detail. We actually, I think, fund education very well. If you take a look at the purple boxes, you can see that county schools and the funding has increased at a pretty steady pace. Asheville City Schools has also, there's a direct relationship there in the funding. We have to pay them on an ADM or average daily membership basis. It's held pretty steady on AB Tech. And if you look on the debt service payments, which we've added there, it has gone up over the last 5 years, but we've opened 5 new K-12 schools and 4 facilities for AB Tech. In total, our education budget from 14 to now is up by $17 million.
Wanda, could I ask a quick question? Just going back to the previous slide, it is striking to see that 11% of local kids are being homeschooled, comparable to the Asheville City Schools. I hadn't seen that stat before. Can you just either quickly review for us, or maybe we could get information later about any mandated services that are required to be provided to kids who are homeschooled that the county is responsible for budgetarily?
I'd be happy to get that. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'm happy to get that for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
There are some new costs included in our budget. One is the Cox Avenue is coming online. We capitalized the interest on that, and that's a gorgeous building. You saw it in the video, but it's also a maxed out, very, very busy building in terms of what we serve. So the debt service on that is $4.7 million. I'll move my paper here, excuse me just a second. All right, a new funding stream is the Tipping and Community Innovations Grant for $500,000. We do have a couple of state mandated requirements here, some new work coming on to NC Fast and some increases in state retirement for our employees. And then we have some debt service and energy and utility expenses that are also new to our budget. If you look at our capital projects that we're requesting, it's the lowest number I've ever come in with. This is basically a $2.8 million request. The big part of that request is $2.3 million to do repairs to the exterior of the old courthouse. It is taking on water in a couple of places. We've put that off for 2 or 3 years and just don't think that we can put it off any longer and maintain the structure of the facility. So we would finance that, and the debt service would be $171,000. There's also a replacement of a cooling tower at the first tower of the detention center. Sometimes it surprises me that is over 20 years old now. We opened it in 1995, so that's...
Dr. Green, one question. On the courthouse exterior repairs, how much was that again?
The cost of the project is $2.3 million. We would finance that, so the debt service is $171,000.
That's an annual payment, not the cost of the project.
Yes, it's an annual
20
payment.
years?
The detention cooling tower is $235,000 with debt of $28,000. And then we do have some carbon reduction measures that include interior lighting retrofits, some LED lighting, and replacing some condensing units. So we would finance those also, and the debt payment would be $22,000.
The courthouse that's 20 years.
That's 20 years. The others are.
And the slide before, just real quick, the debt service on the HS campus, 4.7, is that pretty consistent annually, or does that drop quite a bit because of the annualized interest? Is that, and I know it's probably the highest amount it'll be, of course, but.
It is the highest amount, and actually my next slide starts to answer that question.
Can we just go back to that? So we never formed an equity task force. Those were all under Health and Human Services. And I thought that money, one, was coming from the revenue from federal prisoners, and also I thought it was already approved and set aside, and the tipping grants weren't part of that.
Actually, it was approved for 17, and we took the money out of fund balance, but it's a new expense. It's a new expense for 18.
But we haven't done anything yet with the 17.
So, and if you would like, we can always remove that and wait until we get results from that. But when we talked about it, it was a 3-year commitment, I thought.
Right, but nothing's happened from 17 yet.
Okay, then we need to talk that through as we go through the process.
And we never formed a task force, so they were recommendations from Health and Human Services.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'll make sure that that's noted in the record. Go back to your question, though. If you or I go out and buy a house or a car, the payment that we're going to make is the same thing every month for the life of that debt. And that's what most people think of, how they think of debt. But in governmental debt, especially in North Carolina, because we have the local government commission, and it's critical to maintaining the state's AAA rating, and it's also beneficial to maintaining our AAA ratings and acquiring it in the first place. They require that you pay even principal payments. So on your car loan, you got a loan and you're paying a lot of interest and a little bit of principal. But on a government loan, you're paying the same amount of principal in every payment. So your payment starts high, which answers your question about the debt. It starts high and then it makes its way down because you pay less interest every payment. We pay payments twice a year. The impact of that, so you start paying on $1 million, it's $63,000, and when you get to the end of it, you're paying $34,000 for your payment. The impact is, if you look on the left-hand side, you can see if you went out and bought something for $1 million as John Q. Public and had a regular mortgage, you'd pay $50,000 for your payment, and at the end of it, you would have paid $1.5 million. In government, we start with a high payment and make our way to a lower payment, and we pay maybe 3% less, 3 to 3.5% less for the cost of the project. Doesn't seem like as much on $1 million. It's a lot on many millions.
It's a lot on $40 million.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers your question. We start high, and it makes its way down.
It does. I think it would not now, but later, that would be a good slide for like the HHS building or whatever. I mean, it would answer that
could do that.
I mean, it would show you first, second, third years, which would be. I mean, I know you look at that all the time when you're forecasting. You're thinking 2 or 3 years out, but certainly helpful to us to see that payment's not always going to be $4.7 million.
What?
And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Are all of the debt vehicles that are issued, the school capital and others, are they all done on the straight line depreciation schedule or straight line amortization schedule?
They're all done on the governmental schedule. So we have
and that's a requirement of the state, or is that just sort of a good practice for AAA credit rating? Is there actually any optionality around that, or is that actually just non-negotiable from the state?
It's not very negotiable.
Highly preferred by LGC.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah.
And they have to approve any debt that we issue. You may occasionally, and I will say I do think we have one debt issue with the parking deck where we have the more traditional flat payment.
What's our total debt?
I've got that coming right up.
Coming up.
So our
A
total
question I have with the debt service, it's 20-year bonds usually, right? what happens when we renegotiate it for lower rate after 5 years? Does that start the clock off again at 20 years, or does it go for 15?
A lot of it depends upon how we want to restructure it.
Okay.
Sometimes we have that flexibility, but we usually try to just keep it at the same terms.
Good, okay.
Sort of the matching principle, try to keep
Right,
it
right.
the useful life.
Okay.
I think 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, that was done and saved approximately $5 million by
Yeah.
doing that exact thing,
Yeah.
that exact thing.
And that is something that Mr. Flora watches every day in his dashboard so that we know when something might be eligible for a refinancing. But go back to Commissioner Frost's question. Our debt balance on July 1st will be $407 million, and that's comprised of 53.6% of that is for education. That means a couple of things. We have restricted revenues that we use to pay that portion of our debt. It's Article 46, and we currently are paying for the Allied Health, Public Safety Training Facility classroom, their flex building and their deck. But it also, Article 39 pays for the K-12. So out of the 53.6% of of the debt, it has its own unique payment stream. I want to move down to the economic development, which is the GE building. It also has its funding stream because we get lease payments from GE for that. So that leaves us with debt service for public safety and human services, and those are both very much core services, and that's the debt you see reflected in our general fund budget. Did that answer your question? So let's look at how fast it pays down. 63% of our debt that we're carrying right now will be paid off in 10 years. And we have what we consider a very aggressive debt payment schedule. LGC likes to see that. The rating agencies like to see that. They want to know that you're going to pay your debt and you're going to pay it aggressively and quickly. I think we're fortunate in Buncombe County in that over the years we have taken care of all those outstanding needs that we have. So when somebody looks at our organization and makes an assessment of it, there's not anything that could happen short of a major catastrophe that would affect our entire community that would throw us into debt. We don't need to build a landfill. Our schools are pretty well taken care of, and there's a solid plan going forward. So there's not anything that just tomorrow would say, you've got to go out and build a jail, or you've got to go out and build a landfill. We plan for those things, and we've done them pretty well. It took about 25 years to get from being in horrible shape to being in the shape we're in today, so that we can rest without thinking a building's going to collapse on us tonight. But that's why they like to see that aggressive payment schedule in case something does happen somewhere. Our debt-to-asset ratio is very good. We have $1.3 billion worth of assets, and we carry $407 million worth of debt. And I can't do a PowerPoint just yet without Chairman Gantz's favorite slide. That's like you have a $61,000 mortgage on your $200,000 home purchase. I'm going to thank Dr. Short very much for bringing up the House Bill 3. That our lobbying agents, which is the State Association of County Commissioners and two others that we follow, had a different interpretation. So I will follow with them tomorrow to make sure. We were told that everything was pushed off for a year, but I will follow up with them tomorrow to make sure about that. So that part is basically better news. And there are a lot of bills out there that can impact counties, but these are the two that had the most financial impact on the budget as we were moving through. Senate Bill 126 is about sales tax. If it passes, the factor that's used, one of the factors that's used to calculate our the sales tax that we'll get, drops from us getting 1.06% to 0.9%. The impact of that is we would lose $1.4 million in sales tax. That bill, the reason we watch it closely is this is not the first time it's been introduced. It was introduced last session and introduced again this session. And so we will watch it very, very closely. This year in 2017, we lost $600,000 in sales tax. Last year, you'll recall, they expanded the sales tax base, particularly to provide funding to smaller counties. They also it was 2 years ago when they did that. And they also budgeted $17.6 million to hold larger counties like ourselves harmless. So it held us harmless for 1 year. Then they did not budget to hold harmless for 17. So this year we've lost $600,000. If this other bill passes, we'll lose 1.4. You know, sales tax is a pretty good growing stream, but we would lose not only this but the growth on it.
Is that a standalone piece of legislation, or is it going to end up being part of budgets, or is it just sort of a standalone bill?
Right now it's standalone. That doesn't mean it'll stay that way as the budget bill progresses.
Sales tax did go up like $2 million from last year, though, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean we've had good growth. We're a retail community, and that's one of the strengths of that particular sales revenue streams for us. If you're a Madison County or one of the smaller counties, the argument is they need the money to build schools, and but I don't think, with the small amount they get, that they've been able to build schools with the portion they've gotten so far. Well, the budget process is actually very far from over. As Chairman Newman mentioned, we do have a retreat on the 16th from 12 till a little after 4, where we will hear from, we'll hear about the financial state of the county. We'll hear a lot more about the reappraisal process and the outcome from that. We're going to hear from many of our larger departments to get a high-level overview of what they do, the services they provide for our citizens. We do still have decisions to make about nonprofit funding, which we may also talk about that day. At the 5 o'clock meeting on the 16th, we'll hear from Buncombe County Schools and our fire departments. And we didn't hear from the county schools tonight because they don't pass their budget until Thursday night when their board meets. We have 21 fire districts. We're hearing some pretty consistent things. All have older equipment that needs to be replaced. Several want to build substations. There are new regulations around safety, and the cost of safety equipment has gone up, and grants have dried up. So, but you will hear from them on the 21st, and I think they'll have a very organized approach to the discussion. On June the 6th, we will have a public hearing on the budget. Another thing that changed last year was any money you appropriate for economic development also requires a public hearing. So we'll also hold the public hearing on the Economic Development Coalition funding on the 6th. That's just a new requirement. You'll recall some of the confusion around that from last year. Very few people use that as a justification going forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Those are certainly the highlights of the budget. And we have obviously much more to come as we go forward.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've just got a couple that, and I know this is a living document, and thank you for the clear presentation tonight. I would like an explanation on the Ferry Road property, how that's impacted. I think the public knows about that, and I think it'd be good to have a good explanation on how that's impacted this year's budget, and when the property does sell, how that would impact future budgets, and just an update on maybe even an update on the property, whatever you think would be appropriate. I would think would be good tonight.
We did include $6.8 million of one-time revenue in the 17 budget in anticipation of selling the Ferry Road property. We've had good activity on the property, but we don't have an offer in hand. We did have someone who saw it yesterday, and who will be seeing it. Another who will be seeing it tomorrow. So there is some activity. We have some other people in the community who are taking a look at it too. When we do sell it, it is one-time revenue. So a couple options we would have is to take it and use it for one-time expenses. If you were to adjust your tax rate for that, it's not sustainable because it is one-time revenue. I do think that we will eventually, and I don't think in the distant future, have buyers for all or a portion of the property. And at that point in time, when we realize that revenue, because we do have to come to you to accept the offer and sell the property, you may have ways that you'd like to use the money, or as you look at some of the one-time things that we need to fund. It's not recurring money, though.
So we we budgeted that we would sell it.
Yes, sir, we did.
Is what happened. It was budgeted that it would be sold. And, you know, I had a concern with the purchase. I didn't support the purchase, but I know we're aggressively trying to work to sell it now, and I'm hopeful that. So, but wouldn't this would be also a one-time impact on this budget?
It would be.
Because of trying to recover from the budgeting it and it not selling. So we're having to recover for it in this budget.
We are having to recover for it in this budget, and we've had to identify a lot of places that we could cut and hold and in order to make it through 17 without that revenue stream. You know, there's a chance it'll sell in 18. It wasn't a real good experience to go ahead and budget it and have it not sell unless we were to get an offer in the next few weeks before the calendar year, the fiscal year ended. Then it might give you some options on use for one-time expenses. Even if we got an offer tomorrow, closing it by June 30th is very unlikely.
So I guess what I'm saying is that though it is an impact to this budget, it's an impact to this budget.
It's an impact to 17's budget.
It's a negative impact to this budget, which is a non-recurring
yes.
negative.
It's an impact to the 18 budget because that's a revenue stream we no longer had.
Okay. So what I'm saying as part of our discussion is to challenge us to remember it's a one-time impact here and to not make a multi-year impact to the public in the rate in our discussions, that we not over and I'm not saying that you're going to overreact to that, but as a group that we make sure that we understand that amount of money goes in our mind for the next multiple years.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to that's not going to happen every year. That's right.
No,
Well,
sorry.
And for me, the lesson,
Maya,
but, yeah.
my issue with Ferry Road is it's a one-time occurrence, but why are we telling the taxpayer that you're the one that's going to pick up the occurrence in a tax increase in your property tax? That's what we're doing. But we're not going to go down. We're just going to ask them, give us the money, then you'll figure out. But I don't understand. And I've asked the question more than once. When we purchased the land, City of Asheville's supposed to, it's $6.8 million, and the City of Asheville's supposed to cut us a check for $3.4 million. How do we still basically owe $6.8 million, and there's $3.4 million out there somewhere? That's high price. I've asked it, and I hate to ask it here, but
I'm happy to answer it. In the closing documents, we took a check for $6.8 million to closing. That's what the county had to pay for it. And so that's the value that we have on our fixed asset records. The general statute that was written to address selling that piece of property said that the proceeds from that would be split between Henderson County and Asheville, and that Asheville had to direct their proceeds to the county to use for public safety, which we did. So it was restricted use coming back in. And I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it was a several-step process.
well,
I think it does, though. And the question is, did the city contribute their half to the county?
Yes.
The answer is yes, they did.
Well, it don't matter if they did. The vote that was made for this property in a 15-minute session is costing the county taxpayers basically 2% on their property tax. And so it's our stupidity for doing it to start with, buying land on an if. Now we're trying to sell land on an if. Now we expect the taxpayers to pay property tax on the same if. We might sell it still yet, but it's not going to come back. It'll be utilized. The money will be utilized in something else in the county. So it's not fair to the taxpayer. That's all I can say. We made a mistake. We need to live with it.
And if I may say,
you go back to the house, Ms. Green, the house, If you buy a $200,000 house and you can only afford a $100,000 house, pretty soon it's going to catch up to you. Well, we just got caught up too. But we have a way to get it. We can go to Dad and say, I need some more money to fix it with. So that's, that's not the way you fix things in my eyes.
And if I might say, had we not put that in as a revenue stream, I would have asked you for a tax rate increase last year. That would have been the only way we would have been able to balance the 17 budget.
Yeah, and I would just make one comment on this, and without trying to litigate the whole history of everything that happened around this piece of property. But just from a budget standpoint, we don't know when this property is going to sell. I think but I think there's every reason to believe it will sell. And there's an appraisal on the property showing that it's going to probably be $6 or $7 million or something in that range. And at the end of the day, the county will have invested only half of the funding that was needed to acquire this property. And if it sells for $6 or $7 million, and we only put in half of that to acquire this piece of property, in the big scheme of things for Buncombe County government, thinking about this purely from a budget standpoint, we are going to come out ahead on this to the tune of several $1 million. So which budget year gets counted in, all these things matter. But in the big scheme of things, once this property sells, the county, from a revenue standpoint, will come out ahead on this by several $1 million. And that's just the cash flow reality of it. So just to kind of keep in mind that is the case.
Chairman, we've already spent that cash flow revenue. We got $3.4 million.
But now we own the land, and we can sell it for $6 or $7 million. And when that happens, we will get that, and that'll be a lot more than we ever invested in the property, is my point.
I just have a question, not about redoing history, but so where did the money get spent in public safety? Is that what you said?
It got partially spent on the firing range and some other things at public safety training facility. I'd have to pull all of that back out to look at it. But at the time, we were building several things at public safety training facility. It also, in our agreement with them, gave Asheville the ability to use our training center.
Wasn't it required to spend it?
It was required by statute to be spent on public safety. And when the deal was made, there was a thought that we might do a firing range on Ferry Road, and that's why it was restricted for public safety.
Well, I didn't want to, rehash history, but I think sometimes history is important for the people to be able to understand what happened, and that we have to figure out a way to lessen the impact as we go forward in the budget process. Yes, and I'm hopeful that we're going to do that. We just need to do that, and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. So,
other questions?
The appeal process.
Yes, sir.
There's quite a few people that have, thank goodness, rightfully so, filed for appeal, and that's usually a pretty good amount. And I know that's, and I'm not trying to get you to give an amount. I know that's a pretty good amount that it does affect the budget also as we move forward to June and figuring out the budget. So,
well, and I'm happy to answer that. In talking with Mr. Roberts, he took a look at the appeals that we've had filed so far, and then gave me an estimate of a $340 million appeal loss, which sounds like a lot, but it's a $36 billion base.
Yes, so it's actually not a
very large percentage.
Not a loss. It's actually, the families out there going, yoo-hoo, when they get the news that they're not going to, they've appealed their value, and we have listened to them and listened to their petition, and it's been changed, and I think I've heard you say that it may not only affect that one person, but if it's on a city, on a block, or maybe someone had a home located near something that impacted the value, that it may impact more than one.
It does. Our property tax base is broken into neighborhoods, unique things, and I'll just use my neighborhood. We have 44 homes, and if I appealed something that was just about my property, then I would probably be the only one that they adjusted a base on up or down either way. But if somebody appealed it because of an issue with the road or something the common infrastructure, it would most likely adjust all 44 rates.
And I think it's good for the public to know that if someone appeals their own home, that they actually
They
may have helped their community or their area or their neighbor or something.
Is it possible
Thanks.
to find out, in past reval years, to find out how close we are to the amount that Gary gives us as far as appeals? Like
It is, and I think this year we're lower. We're much lower than we've used percentages in the past, and closer to 2% and 3%, and this is really right at just shy of 1%.
But it'd be good to find out, like in different years, how.
We'll be happy to.
Dr. Green, a couple questions about the appeals process, and these may be better suited for a retreat, but do we have data yet on the total number of people who appealed and?
Gary, the appeal process ran at the end of April, so Gary will have those this week.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
And we were at like almost shy of 7,000 when I checked about 3 weeks ago.
Okay,
But commercial appeals usually come in at the very last minute.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, any other questions on the budget at this time?
Nope, that was great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on, we have one board appointment to the Land Conservation Advisory Board. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we appoint Sarah Frazier.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. On May 16th, the Board of County Commissioners will hold a budget workshop beginning at noon in the first floor conference room at 200 College Street in downtown Asheville. That evening at 5 p.m. in this room, 326 at 200 College Street, the Board of Commissioners will hold their regular meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
In a hurry.
We're adjourned.